humanizing business, as that is a brand differentiator. And what does that mean? So first, three topics today. First, I want to tell you who I am, a little bit of my background so you understand, gives context to how I speak about what I speak about, why customer experience matters, and humanizing business and leading with a heart. And I say that in that context because humanizing business is the way that we work with customers and balancing technology that's advancing as well as the human side. And leading with a heart is really how you have to lead your internal teams. And I believe it needs to be with a heart and empathy. So we'll dive into that. So a little bit about me. I am the CX director and leading employee engagement at Schindler Elevator Corporation. It is a global company. Previously, I did this at Verizon. So lots of different brands, a lot of different industries. And by night, I am writing, blogging, speaking about doing CX right. How do you really do customer experience right to gain a competitive edge? And consider myself a thought leader, writing books, some good recognition, and you'll find me in Forbes writing articles every month. So let's talk about, you have to get CX right, but why? This is not just Stacy's belief or hunch. There's a lot of research behind it. And so I want to bring up one in particular that I really love. And this is about the fact that it takes 12 positive experiences to make up for one unresolved negative experience. Think about that. That is a lot of energy and resources and investment to turn an unhappy customer into a happy one. And here's the thing that this quote doesn't say, which is my add-on. That's if they give you a chance. That's if the customer actually tells you. A lot of times they'll just leave and not even give you a chance to make it better. So think about that as we talk about this, how you have to get it right from the beginning. So doing CX right in a human-centered approach. So first thing I like to tell everybody is walk in the customer's shoes. Now that sounds very broad, and here's how you make it actionable. This is a customer journey. Now the journey is much more complicated. It can be more complex, and it does vary from industry to industry. But the point is that I encourage you to get all of your different teams into a room and map out how should your customer experience your brand. How should they interact? Not should, I don't like should, could. What's the ideal experience to interact with your brand? So in other words, learn. How will they learn about you? Is it just through social media? Is it through a sales force? Is it through events? Right? So map out all the ways that they will become aware and learn about your brand. What's that buying experience? How do you want them to buy? Is it e-commerce? Is it a retail store? Is it both? There's multiple ways, but you need to identify, is it omni-channel, is it not, and design that. And the same thing with these other aspects of getting their product or service, using it, bill and pay, that's huge. If all the other parts of the journey go well, but it's really hard to pay their bill and invoicing is wrong and complicated, guess what's going to happen? They're going to leave, and even worse, they're going to tell others. And then getting help, huge part of the customer journey. So design it. And again, that's an internal design process. But then you need to validate it. Validate it with real customers, or what I call their personas, the target audience that you want to buy from you. And validation is an important part. So that's where you take your design and the journey and you talk to real customers and ask them, does this meet your expectations? Why or why not? And then you want to measure at every interaction point. Understand, what are their emotions? What are their pain points? What are they most concerned about and why? And then how can you improve the experiences? So like I said, if one part of the customer journey goes wrong, it affects if the customer's going to stay or leave. So keeping the journey in mind, I like to say there is definitely pieces that you could do that are a game changer. And so one thing is around the voice of the customer. This is really important. And what happens is a lot of times companies think that it's just a survey. That's how you get the voice of the customer feedback, but it's much broader than that. There's a lot of voices, a lot of feedback, a lot of insights out there from not just surveys. Obviously, focus groups has been around a long time and one-on-one interviews. Social media, you've got to pay attention to what customers are saying. And rating review sites is very, very popular. And it's also important that not only are you watching what people are saying, but you also have a really good response that your company gives on these public forums because people are watching. You are affecting your brand reputation. So you do need a very good communication plan when these conversations happen, but then also aggregate it all so that you can really make sense of what's the customer feeling and saying and thinking, aggregate it and use it to your advantage to make improvements through the journey. And there are a lot more ways to capture the voice of customer, but this is just a sampling. So what else? What else is the game changer? Voice of employee. That's right. Talking to your employees, especially the front line, customer service, all the people that are talking to customers who understand what they need, what they're asking for, what they're complaining about, what are they frustrated about. You need to marry what the employee's saying and the customer's saying. Here is my warning sign. Here's the caveat. You cannot cut corners. And what I mean by that is you cannot replace the voice of the customer with the employee. In other words, you can't say, well, you know, we don't have enough time. We're going to go to launch and we'll get the customer feedback later. No, you've got to get the customer and the employee, you marry that data, but the employee can't be the customer. You can't replace it. So quality over speed is really important. Formula. My formula is around, there's a lot of pieces that make doing CX right happen. So here's a piece of the equation. Internally, your employees, when they feel valued, when they feel included and really appreciated, what do you think is going to happen? The answer is you get happy customers. One fuels the other. It's contagious. When you have happy, motivated employees, the customers feel it, they see it. And I've proven this model over and over again. So how do you build that customer-centric culture? Well, first I want to just highlight there's so much research behind this theory that your customers feel and hear the sense of happiness from your employees. And so I just want to highlight two things I saw that really grabbed my attention. And this was a Gallup survey. And it came up with engaged teams generate 21% more profit than their disengaged counterparts. It makes intuitive sense, but this is pretty cool that they brought some numbers to it. Also, employers who increase their workers' engagement by 10% can boost profits by over $2,000 per employee every year. I'm telling you, there's so much data like this that really goes to show that you need to focus on your employees. And that's why diversity and inclusion is such a hot topic. And there's a lot of different cultural events happening because this is a proven fact. So here's another very common famous guy, Stephen Covey. And I love this quote. He says, always treat your employees exactly as you want them to treat your customers. And it's really thought-provoking and true. And I like to add on to the fact that treat your employees exactly as you want them to treat your customers, even when their boss isn't looking. That's when the magic happens. So some best practices that you can do right now. Make customer experience part of all meeting agendas. So the executives to mid-management, all levels. Make sure you're talking about customer experience and ways that you can deliver excellence at all your different meetings. Make it front and center. One of the things I love to do is to take our surveys and all the voice of customer feedback that I mentioned and bring it together and give it to the product teams, give it to the sales teams, and have them use this feedback at their meetings and celebrate, especially when customers mention employees by name. Call it out, draw that recognition. And then when customers are not happy, and they again mention employees by name who they've interacted with, use it as coaching opportunities. It's very powerful when you have tangible examples. Empathy training, there is so much value to that. So I would say, example, your call center reps, they're talking to customers all day long. It can get monotonous. And they're also sometimes the punching bag when the customer's really frustrated. So I would say to you, give them empathy training, help them be able to humanize their conversations and not sound like a script. A lot of times they are reading from a script, but train them to really listen and be able to respond while following a script, but empower them so that they really listen to what the customer and not be just like, and then move on to the question that may have already even been answered. Celebrate. So CX Day is coming soon, Customer Experience Day. It's such a powerful day. I encourage you to learn about CX Day. Just Google it or Google my name and you'll see so much activity around this. It's October 6th. It's really a global day. It's not any particular company day. It is spearheaded by CXPA. And it's a great day and excuse to bring your employees together to celebrate them and customers. So much more to tell you on this, but be creative. There's a lot of great ideas around that. And the other thing I'd say about building your customer-centric culture and sense of belonging and value is build connections, be creative, not just in a work sense. So something I did was during COVID when it hit initially, I hosted a book club with my team. We started with Simon Sinek's Start with the Why. And boy, has that been powerful for me to get to know my team at a deeper level. And it was so good that we kept it going. We talk about TED Talks and other inspirational materials. And so it's easy to do. Be creative. And again, empower your employees to do what's right. If you give them that ability and empower them, they will. The other thing I want to highlight is pivoting your business when really needed, such as now in any pandemic. And that is showing empathy. So something that we're doing is calling customers and what we call peace of mind calls. Are you okay? We're here for you. They'll remember that later on when COVID at some point is behind us. And communicate internally, externally. Silence is not an option. So when customers are waiting for a response about a delivery, a service date, anything, and you may not have the answer, silence is not an option. Pick up the phone. Tell them, you know what, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm following up. And so an irate customer will become more patient because you took the time. So increasing your skills, there's a lot of ways to do that. Of course, I want you to come to my blog, doingcxright.com, but there's so many inspirational speakers, podcasts, blogs out there. So just Google CX and you'll see so many of us. Social media is a lot of conversations that I encourage you to learn from, join the conversation, have a voice because you really do have a role in CX and may not even realize it. And so there's a lot of topics: persona development, journey mapping, measurements, culture. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much there. And one thing that I would encourage everybody is to get certified. There are a lot of opportunities to do that. I'd love to tell you what I've done. There's several universities now offering CX. I don't work for those universities, but I am passionate about people getting certified, because the more that people understand how to apply these best practices, the more we're going to have happier employees and happier customers, and we're consumers too. And you could see there's a better world out there. So if you want to know more about what I did and the universities that are offering the certification and some good discounts, I'm glad to share. So if you would like to reach me for any of the above, this is my website. A lot of content. I encourage you to spend some time. I talk so much more. This is just a sampling of what I write about and speak about. And again, I'm very present on social media, so join my conversations, connect. I'd love to hear from you and talk more about doing CX right. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. I have a few quick questions for you before our time is up. First of all, who owns CX, customer experience, in an organization?
I love that question. So yeah, the answer is everyone. But what happens is when there is a department or a person that owns it, people have the misperception that it's them. And actually, their job and my job is to make everybody, you're in human resources, you're in billing, remember the customer journey I talked about, everybody, marketing in terms of awareness, everybody has a piece of delivering customer experiences. So it's important that you, as a leader in your company and with your colleagues, make sure that everybody understands that, rallies behind it, because then it's a holistic approach.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So another question that I've heard a lot is, what exactly is the difference between customer service and customer experience?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the visual. So that is such a good question, because people use the word customer service and customer experience interchangeably, and you can't. No. Customer experience is this holistic approach to delivering customer excellence. It is the whole journey and digging deep into it. And it's that holistic perspective that you solve for and measure. Customer service is a very important part of this journey. So it's that get help, and it can make or break a brand reputation. So when you say customer service, realize it's all about the get help, whether it's online chat, whether it's a phone rep, whether it's on Twitter and somebody's responding to a customer complaint. That's really service. It's a piece of the journey. So it's important to name it correctly, because they do mean different things.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, and last question, I'm sorry, but what are some of the metrics, just really quick, that can measure if customers are happy?
Yes. So the most common one that a lot of companies use is Net Promoter Score, NPS. But that is just one piece of it. Would people recommend the brand or company or product? What's important to understand the why behind that. And so you need to understand our customer CSAT scores, satisfaction. My favorite metric is level of effort, LOE. How easy or difficult is it to buy from us? How easy or difficult is it to pay your bill? How easy or difficult is it to get help when you need it? So LOE is one of my favorites. And certainly there's sentiments and feelings behind the why. So those are some of the high level. There's definitely a lot more. Expand your program, but if you don't have a CX measurement, certainly starting with any of those or NPS is good.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again, Stacy, for showing us that why happy customers start with happy employees.